Hey everybody, it's time for my week 14 power rankings. As always, I'm going to work my way from 10 back down to 1, starting with the number 10 team and going into my top team. And as always, I like to show some respect to some teams. So you see on this list, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening to the podcast, it's youtube.com/theunderdog. If this list were to go from 11 to 15, it would go in order. Number 11, Titans. Number 12, Pittsburgh. Number 13, Oakland. Number 14, the Rams. Number 15, the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys, yes, I know if the playoffs started today, they would be in there. But hey, look, Dallas, they've struggled against good defenses the last 2 weeks. They've struggled for some reason against the AFC East all season. They lost to the Jets, remember. They actually struggled in the first half against the Miami Dolphins. Bottom line is, if you have Super Bowl aspirations, you're going to have to play a tough defense, and you're going to have to score on that tough defense to win the games. Dallas needs to fix their defense. They need to fix their offense a little bit against more elite defenses, in my opinion. The Rams, 7-5. Now with this Minnesota loss, Minnesota is still in my top 10. The LA Rams are only one game behind Minnesota. We're going to get into some weird tiebreakers depending on what happens in the next couple of weeks here. Stay tuned. I'll have a playoff show coming up. The Raiders, I know they've struggled the last 2 weeks. I think they'll get things back on track. Pittsburgh, I believe if the season ended today, they would be in the playoffs, but I have them ranked behind the Tennessee Titans, who I just like more. I trust Tannehill more than I trust Devlin Hodges. I trust the Tennessee Titans defense. I trust the running game of Tennessee to get it done, especially as we get into that cold, nasty weather in this month of December that we are in. So I like Tennessee, and they are going to give Houston, who is in my top 10, a run for their money. But with no further ado, let's start with my official top 10. We're going to once again work our way backwards, starting with the number 10 team on my list, the Buffalo Bills at 9-3, and this goes to show you how cream of the crop we have at the top of the league right now. The Buffalo Bills are a very, very good team. I believe the season over/under for the Buffalo Bills, Bovada had at about 9 wins. Bovada Sportsbook has the Buffalo Bills at plus 4,000. If you're not unfamiliar with betting terms, basically that's 40 to 1. Okay. So the Buffalo Bills, I don't know what the hubbub was about in Dallas. That was not an upset. Buffalo came in and handled business on Thanksgiving. That Buffalo was the better team coming into it. They had the better defense. I think they had the better personnel, frankly, and I think they should have won that game. It wasn't an upset. I know people are just assuming people are, they're going to walk over them. And Buffalo, for the, most of the season, they've been devalued, across sportsbook. And, I use Bovada, and, I've seen them go from plus 6,600 to plus 6,000. Now they're at plus 4,000. They're starting to get a little bit more respect as we go through. But again, if you look at the bottom of that list, Dallas at 6-6 is still at plus 2,500 to win the Super Bowl, even though Buffalo just handled them pretty easily. So let me say this: if you're a futures bettor, you could do worse than Buffalo. I mean, I think they're a team that could conceivably win the Super Bowl. I don't think that's where I would put my money, but you never know. Number 9 on my list, coming off the Monday Night Football defeat, is the Minnesota Vikings. Bovada has them at plus 2,200 to win the Super Bowl, so that's 22 to 1. Now listen, I'm not overreacting to that loss. I thought this game, I think Minnesota and Seattle were numbers 4 and 5 or 5 and 6 on my list last week. I like Minnesota. We're going to find out how severe the injury is to Dalvin Cook. Obviously, that's going to be a big difference, but this team can move the ball. They just need a little bit more than only Stephon Diggs and Kyle Rudolph. I want to see Thielen back. I want to see Dalvin Cook back and healthy before moving them back up this list. But hey, they have a couple of games. I think they have Detroit, they have Chicago. I believe they have, if I'm not mistaken, the LA Chargers, and certainly the Green Bay Packers. So they still are in very, very good position for that 6th seed. But as I mentioned before, the Rams are knocking at the door at 7-5. If the Rams somehow can run the table against, I think they have the Seahawks, the Cardinals, the 49ers, and somebody else, maybe Dallas or somebody like that. I can't recall. But if the Rams can run the table and basically finish at 12-5 or 11-5, I apologize. Man, Minnesota's going to have a tough time depending on how, who they beat and all that. They could go to strength of schedule, or they could go to, one of these other weird tiebreakers like, a common opponent record because they didn't get to play each other in the season. So it's going to be interesting. Bottom line, Minnesota has to win games. They need Thielen back. Hopefully he can come back soon. Number 8 on my list. They finally woke back up coming off a bye week. The Kansas City Chiefs at 8-4. Bovada has them at plus 750 to win the Super Bowl. I believe last week they were around the plus 900 range. So basically 7.5 to 1. They're a team with that offensive firepower you have to respect. They were able to, I don't want to say run the ball with success because they're still not really running that well. Hopefully they can get Damian Williams healthy, but this is still a pass-first offense. I view them as a little bit flawed, but I guess in all of this, the silver lining with the Mahomes injury and some of the running back issues that they've had is the defense has been stepping it up and getting better and better. And remember, this Chiefs team was built basically to contend against the New England Patriots, and lo and behold, the Chiefs and the Patriots play in Week 14. Going to be a very good one. So yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs have an opportunity to move up on this list. That's a huge game. They want to stay two games ahead of Oakland in the loss column certainly. So that's going to be a big one. It's a big one for the Patriots too. They need to keep pace to keep a home field advantage and one of those top 2 seeds. They just lost the top seed this past week with the loss to the Houston Texans. Number 7 on my list, the Green Bay Packers at 9-3. Bovada has them at plus 1,500 to win the Super Bowl. They can run, they can play defense. They have a quarterback that has won a Super Bowl in the past. My issue with them, it's not the defense. It's not that they got punched in the mouth by San Francisco in Week 13. It's that they haven't found another receiver to play opposite Davante Adams. They have 2 running backs that can kind of trade off. Davante Adams is very good. The defense is strong enough, I think, to win a Super Bowl and make a run if Aaron Rodgers has the competitive, fire from the running game and the offensive line. Now, what happened in San Francisco is a very real thing, but I think the Green Bay offensive line will be more prepared to deal with that speed the next time they play. So I think that game would be more competitive. But they need another receiver. It's not Valdez-Scantling. It's not Geronimo Allison. Could it be Alan Lazard? I've been saying this for a few weeks. He got a little bit more opportunity. He found the end zone, over 100 yards, 3 receptions. He can make big plays. Aaron Rodgers likes him and trusts him. I hope for Green Bay's sake that he gets more opportunity down the line because they're going to need him, not Valdez-Scantling, not Geronimo Allison, and Davante Adams needs some support to relieve some pressure off him. Number 6 on my list, coming off the loss to the Houston Texans, is the New England Patriots at 10-2. Bovada has them at plus 350 to win the Super Bowl. This is the first time this season that New England is not the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl, according to Bovada. Now, they lost, and the reality is, and look, I'm not somebody who sleeps on the Patriots. I never have been. I understand how many Super Bowls Brady and Belichick have won together. I understand that Belichick is the greatest head coach of all time. I'm not a big fan of New England, but, I mean, you just sound like an idiot if you don't say that thing. You sound like you're biased, and I'm not a biased guy. I have a lot of betting rules, but here's the thing. New England, I'm sick of saying it week after week that they're going to figure out their offense. They're going to figure out their offense. And maybe they will. Maybe Jacoby Myers can be that second receiver. Maybe N'Keal Harry can be that goal line or that red zone target. But I need to see it. What I did like from New England this week, even though they lost, was James White was a little bit more involved. The running game had a little bit more life to it. But they need to do better. And certainly they need to find a kicker that can make a kick, for crying out loud. Number 5 on my list, the Houston Texans, according to Bovada, at plus 2,500 to win the Super Bowl. Let me tell you, this is hands down my favorite value bet for futures. Deshaun Watson is a quarterback that can win. The Houston Texans, when Will Fuller plays, are a different team than when he doesn't play. This 8-4 record, from my point of view, can throw it out the window. Will Fuller needs to play. When the Ravens beat the crap out of Houston, they did not have Will Fuller. Not to say that he would have been the difference maker here, but the bottom line is when Will Fuller doesn't play, you can basically just double or triple cover DeAndre Hopkins, and then things get weird for Houston. Then it becomes Deshaun Watson just basically willing them to win. When Will Fuller's back there, they have to respect it. The Patriots respected him enough to try to take him out of the game. DeAndre Hopkins had his way, and they ended up winning, so good for Houston last week, but once again, they're number 5. Number 4 on my list, coming off the loss in that slug match, that slugfest in Baltimore on a rainy day, the San Francisco 49ers, they dropped from number 2 to number 4 this week, and you'll see why in a bit. I still love the 49ers. They might damn well be my second favorite team in the league, so 49ers fans that are ticked that I'm dropping them, believe me, this makes logical sense. Just stick with me here. I like San Francisco. I love Mostert. I love how this passing game has come together. They've been banged up all year. I know it. They, on another day, they could have beaten this. I thought this was a coin flip, a field goal game either way coming into it. I picked San Francisco +5 against the spread. I covered that spread. So look, no disrespect to San Francisco. I think they're a phenomenal team, as I do think probably any of these top 7 or 8 teams are phenomenal teams. I mean, you can make a really strong case for any one of these, and I understand that. This week, San Francisco just shakes out to number 4 on my list at +700. But guess what? They get to play the the New Orleans Saints this week. Another big matchup in the top 5 of my list. We'll talk about the Saints in a bit. Number 3 on my list, according to Bovada, at +1,000, coming off their Monday Night Football victory, the Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson is still basically my... at this point, I have to admit I'm going to be, I would give my vote. I don't have a vote, but if I had one, I would give it to Lamar Jackson at this point. But Seattle would be and Russell Wilson would be my number 2 player. Where would Seattle be without Russell Wilson? He is just incredible. Again, I'm not a big fan of Seattle. In fact, the Seattle Seahawks knocked my teams out of the playoffs year after year, and I don't have any love lost for them, believe me. But Seattle's just a good team. You got to give respect where respect is due, especially when you're trying to bet on futures. And once again, Bovada has them at +1,000. Their odds are improving. They can run. I need to see a little bit more out of their defense, but their offense is scoring enough to win. And Russell Wilson, let me tell you, if this game is close, if any game is close in the fourth quarter, his escapability is just it's really hard to measure that analytically. I'll say that. You can talk about the stats about his scramble and his ability to slither out and extend drives, but it's more than that. It's just back-breaking stuff what he does. This can be like 4th and 6. You have the perfect coverage, and he'll roll out and get 10 yards on a scramble or 15 yards on a scramble and just completely take the air out of a building if he's on the road. He's just an incredible quarterback playing great football. Number 2 on my list, the New Orleans Saints. After their Thursday night win, they move up a couple spots. They're at +550 according to Bovada to win the Super Bowl. They are the odds-on favorites to win the NFC according to Bovada. Look, New Orleans versus San Francisco. We get that this weekend. That could very well be a preview of the NFC Championship. We saw the Seahawks and the Saints play earlier this year as well. So remember, San Francisco fans, you lost to Seattle. New Orleans beat Seattle, and that's why I broke the tie as I did. If San Francisco can beat New Orleans this week, guess what? They vault up to probably number 2 on this list, depending on what happens with Baltimore. Hopefully we see them keep winning, which brings me to my number 1 team, the Baltimore Ravens, at +260 according to Bovada to win the Super Bowl. That's 2.5 to 1 basically, and they are, for the first time this season, the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl. Bovada has pushed them ahead in odds, ahead of the New England Patriots. It only took us 14 weeks for a change at the top of the list to be made, but you can't ignore what the Ravens are doing. That game against San Francisco was fantastic, and I wish it was played under better conditions, but maybe we'll get another chance at seeing that matchup. But any of these matchups in the Super Bowl, let me just read off a couple possible matchups in the Super Bowl. I mean, is there a bad one out there? Let's say, just throwing one out here, Ravens versus Seahawks, a rematch of earlier in the season. Ravens versus Packers, 2 different styles of football playing. Let's say Houston makes the Super Bowl and they play, San Francisco. Houston-San Francisco would be a great game. Houston-New Orleans would be... There's not a bad game out here. The Patriots against any of these NFC teams is a great storyline anytime you get them. The Vikings make a run. If the Bills make a run, it's all just great theater. I'm loving what the NFL is doing right now. I'm pumped about it. If we're getting into the last few games here this season, we're in the final stretch, the last quarter of the season, and I'll be with everybody every step of the way. Please keep checking out our network. Check out our playlist as well. Our Week 14 playlist will be updated daily as we move into that week. We have fantasy football, we have game picks, we have everything that you would want and need. Thanks again for supporting our channel. Please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on another episode soon. Thanks.